You were 8 years old making dinner for your little brother because mom was working late. 9 years old mediating your parents' argument. 10 years old being told you need to set an example. You weren't raised, you were trained. Trained to be responsible before you were ready. Trained to be the third parent. Trained to carry weight that wasn't yours to carry. And now, decades later, you're still doing it. Still fixing everyone's problems. Still can't say no. Still the one everyone depends on while you're silently drowning. If you're the eldest child and you've spent your entire life being the responsible one, this video will explain why you are the way you are, and it's not what you think. Eldest children have never heard this. You didn't have a childhood, you had a role, and that role came with a script you never agreed to yet had to act out anyway. We're going to explore the psychology of being the eldest child, why you became the family's emotional anchor, and why being mature for your age was never the compliment everyone made it out to be. We'll discuss parentification, family systems theory, and why you still struggle to accept help even when you desperately need it. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. Your parents were practicing on you. It wasn't because they were bad parents, it was because you were the experiment, the pilot run, the first pancake that always turns out wrong. They were terrified first-time parents who had no idea what they were doing, so they overcompensated. Strict rules, impossible standards, constant surveillance, and discipline based on "because I said so." To them, every decision was a matter of life and death, so they controlled everything.
And just when you least expected it, your younger brother arrived. Suddenly, as if by magic, the rules changed. He was allowed to get away with the very things for which you had been punished. He had parents who were more relaxed and self-assured, parents who had already made their mistakes with you. You got the prototype version of their parenting. He got the updated release. And you were left with a sense of resentment you aren't even allowed to feel because you should be grateful to have siblings. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll see it wasn't just about stricter rules. You were handed responsibility that had no business being yours. Watch your brother. Make sure your sister does her homework. Keep them quiet. I have a headache. You were 8, maybe 9, and suddenly responsible for another human's safety. And if something went wrong, your fault. Even when it wasn't. Even when you were just a kid yourself. Psychologists call this parentification, when a child is forced into a caregiving role that should belong to an adult. And it doesn't just mean babysitting, it means emotional labor. You comforted your mom when she was stressed. You mediated fights between your siblings. You became the family's emotional regulator before you even understood your own emotions. Dr. Gregory Jerkovich, who studied parentification for decades, found that oldest children often develop what he calls compulsive caregiving. You didn't choose to be a caretaker, it was assigned to you. But now as an adult, you can't stop. It's your default, your identity, the only way you know how to exist in relationships. And here's the devastating part. You don't know how to receive care because you never learned it was for you. Everyone takes from you, and you let because deep down you believe your worth is tied to how useful you are. If you're not fixing something, managing something, carrying something, who are you?
You're so mature for your age. You heard that constantly. Teachers, relatives, family, friends. And it felt good, right? Like praise. Like you were special. But here's what that phrase actually meant. You're convenient. You don't act like a child, so we don't have to treat you like one. You don't need attention. You don't need help. You make our lives easier. It wasn't a compliment. It was a label. And that label came with expectations. You had to be the good one, the responsible one, the one who never caused problems because your younger siblings were already causing enough. You had to be perfect. Not for you, for them. To make parenting easier. To set an example. To prove the family was functional. So you performed. You suppressed your needs. You didn't cry when you were hurt because you're stronger than that. You didn't complain when things were unfair because life isn't fair. You should know that by now. You became the child who didn't need parenting, and your parents were relieved. One less thing to worry about. But inside, you were still a kid who needed attention, validation, and permission to mess up, and you never got it because you were too busy being the example, the buffer, the emotional shock absorber for the entire family system. However, if you're the eldest daughter, it feels different because you didn't just act as a third parent, you became a second mother. The expectation wasn't merely about responsibility, but an emotionally charged burden of the highest order. You didn't just keep an eye on your siblings, you raised them. You cooked for them, cleaned up after them, regulated their emotions, and soothed their fears. You even acted as a therapist for your own mother. The phrase, "Can you help me with?" wasn't a question, it was a command. And you couldn't say no, because good girls don't say no. They're helpful, self-sacrificing, and always ready to put others first. Studies show show that eldest daughters experience disproportionate parentification compared to sons, especially in traditional family structures. You were expected to care for others, anticipate their needs, and manage everyone else's emotions while suppressing your own. And now, in adulthood, you have become everyone's emotional dumping ground. Your friends unload their traumas onto you. Your partners rely on you to regulate their emotions. Your coworkers assume you'll pick up the slack for what they leave undone. And you do it because you don't know any other way. You exhibit what psychologists call a fawn response. You try to please others in order to survive. You take on excessive responsibility in all your relationships. You are exhausted, but you can't stop, because if you're not needed, what is your worth?
Your parents didn't mean to hurt you. They were simply overwhelmed. First-time parents are terrified. They have no instruction manual and no experience. Every decision feels momentous. That is why they try to compensate for that insecurity with control and rigidity. It is anxiety disguised as strictness. Often, firstborns arrive during the most difficult years, when parents are younger, less financially stable, and still learning how to navigate their relationship. There is more stress, fewer resources, and less emotional bandwidth. By the time your younger siblings came along, your parents had more money, more stability, and more confidence. They had already made their mistakes with you. It isn't exactly favoritism, it is a brutal learning curve, and you bore the brunt of it. Dr. Kevin Lehman, who has studied birth order for over 40 years, calls this the firstborn tax. You paid the price for your parents' inexperience, while your siblings reaped the benefits. There is another aspect too. In many families, the firstborn becomes the emotional stabilizer. When your parents argued, you acted as the mediator. When a sibling had a problem, you stepped in. When chaos reigned, you brought calm. You became the family's regulatory system, not because you wanted to, but because the system needed it. And no one stopped to ask if you were okay. They simply assumed you were, because you always knew how to handle the situation. So what does this look like now as an adult? You attract people who need saving, partners who are emotionally unavailable but need you, friends who only call when they're in crisis, jobs where you're overworked and underpaid but everyone's counting on you. You've built an entire life around being indispensable, and it's killing you. You can't delegate because nobody will do it right. You can't rest because there's too much to do. You can't ask for help because you should be able to handle it. You're burned out, resentful, and exhausted. But you keep going because stopping feels like failure, like abandoning your purpose. Your identity is fused with responsibility. If you're not carrying something, you feel worthless, useless, like you're not doing enough. So you keep adding weight, more projects, more people to help, more problems to solve, until your body forces you to stop. Burnout, chronic illness, complete shutdown. And here's what's really cruel. While you're drowning, people still see you as strong, capable, the one who has it together. They have no idea you're one bad day away from completely falling apart. Because you've performed competence for so long, they believe it, and you can't shatter that illusion now. Too many people depend on the mask.
So how do you break this? First, you have to grieve the childhood you didn't get, the one where you were allowed to be irresponsible, messy, needy, a kid. You didn't get that, and pretending it's fine is keeping you stuck. You need to acknowledge it wasn't supposed to be this way. Second, you need to learn the hardest word in your vocabulary: no. Not I'll try, not maybe later, just no. People will be shocked. They'll push back. They'll make you feel guilty because they've benefited from your inability to set boundaries for years. Let them be uncomfortable. Their disappointment is not your emergency. Third, practice receiving without earning it. Let someone help you without offering something in return. Sit with the discomfort of being cared for without being useful. Your worth isn't tied to what you do, but you won't believe it until you test it. And finally, understand this. You were trained to carry the world, but you're allowed to put it down. The family system that needed you to be the stabilizer doesn't exist anymore. You're an adult now, and you get to choose a different role, one where you're not responsible for everyone's emotional well-being, where you're allowed to be imperfect, unavailable, and human. Being the eldest child wasn't a privilege. It was a training program you never signed up for. You became responsible and reliable, stepping into a parental role before you'd even hit puberty. And now you're still living by that same script. You're still the one everyone leans on. You still can't bring yourself to ask for help. You're still carrying a burden that isn't yours to bear, but you don't have to anymore. You were the experiment, but you aren't the blueprint. Not anymore. If this resonated with you, hit subscribe. And if you're looking for psychology that truly explains why you are the way you are, else.Are, this is the channel for you.